They went to sleep as themselves, but the morning light didn't recognize them, and neither did the mirror. The first hint of the unraveling was subtle, a discordant note in the morning's quiet symphony. The sun sliced through the blinds in familiar stripes across the hardwood floor. The scent of yesterday's rain lingered in the air, yet, as Rachel sat up in bed, a profound sense of displacement washed over her. It was as if she were a guest in her own body, a spectator looking out through someone else's eyes. She glanced at Marcus, still sleeping beside her, his chest rising and falling in a steady, reassuring rhythm. But the reassurance felt hollow, distant. She padded into the bathroom, the cool tile, a familiar sensation against her bare feet. But when she looked into the mirror, a stranger stared back. The face was hers, the same scattering of faint freckles across her nose, the small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood fall. But the eyes, they were cold, glassy pools of unfamiliarity. They held none of her history, none of her warmth. It was like looking at a high-fidelity mask perfectly rendered but utterly soulless. A shiver, sharp and icy, traced its way down her spine. Downstairs, Marcus was already in the kitchen, pouring coffee. His movements were precise, economical, lacking the usual lazy grace she knew so well. He turned, a cup in his hand, and smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. "Morning. Sleep well." His voice was the right pitch, the right timbre, but the cadence was off. Each word felt carefully selected, as if he were reading from a script he had just memorized. It was a performance of normalcy, and it was terrifying. She felt a phantom pressure, a pane of thick glass separating her from the life she was supposed to be living. At the breakfast table, the silence was heavy, broken only by the clink of silverware against ceramic. The air crackled with unspoken dread. Rachel finally broke the tension, her voice barely a whisper. "Marcus do feel strange." He looked up from his toast, his expression unreadable, a placid mask. He took a slow, deliberate sip of coffee before answering, his voice a monotone drone that chilled her to the bone. "I feel perfectly fine, Rachel. Perhaps you're just tired." The search for proof became an obsession, a frantic scramble to anchor herself to a reality that was dissolving like sand through her fingers. It began in the living room, with the family photo albums stacked neatly on the bookshelf. Rachel pulled one from the shelf, its leather cover worn and familiar. She opened it to a picture from their wedding day. There they were, smiling, caught in a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. But as she looked closer, the same cold dread from the mirror returned. Their faces were correct, the smiles were there, but the eyes were vacant. They were the eyes of mannequins, devoid of life, of love, of any shared history. She flipped through the pages, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Every photo was the same. Vacation snapshots, holiday gatherings, candid moments, all featuring two strangers wearing her and Marcus's faces. The physical evidence mounted, each piece a chisel chipping away at her sanity. She found old letters they had written to each other, tucked away in a shoebox. The handwriting was a close imitation, but it was too perfect to uniform. Her own looping, slightly messy cursive was gone, replaced by a neat, sterile script. His bold, angular scrawl was now a series of precise, controlled characters. It was their writing, but it wasn't. Even Buster, their golden retriever, seemed to sense the shift. The dog, who usually greeted them with ecstatic wags and slobbery kisses, now kept his distance. He would watch them from the far end of the room, a low, guttural growl rumbling in his chest whenever they approached. His instincts knew what Rachel's mind was struggling to accept. They were imposters in their own home. Their next-door neighbor, Mrs. Gable, commented on how rested they looked when they passed her on the street, but her friendly smile was tinged with a flicker of confusion. "You both seem distant," she'd said, her head tilted in thought, "like you're a million miles away." The final, damning piece of evidence came from her own nightstand. Tucked inside a book she'd been reading was a small, folded piece of paper. She recognized her own handwriting immediately, the real version, the messy, familiar one. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. The note was short, a desperate plea from a version of herself she no longer was. It read, "Don't trust the mirror. Don't trust his voice. They aren't you." The nights became a landscape of terror. The subtle wrongness of the day gave way to overt horror in the dark. Marcus began to sleepwalk. Rachel would wait to find him standing in the corner of the room, or by the window, staring out into the blackness with unseeing eyes. He would murmur, not in his sleep-addled mumble but in a guttural, alien language she had never heard. The sounds were a cascade of harsh consonants and elongated sibilant vowels that made the hair on her arms stand on end. Driven by a mixture of fear and a desperate need for answers, she started recording him on her phone. She would lie awake, feigning sleep, the device clutched in her hand, capturing the eerie monologues that filled their bedroom. Playing them back during the day was even more terrifying. Buried beneath the alien speech, she could hear whispers, dozens of them, layered and distorted, a chorus of disembodied voices chattering just below the threshold of comprehension. One sleepless night, an idea seized her. She uploaded the audio to her laptop and, with trembling fingers, reversed the playback. The cacophony of whispers resolved into something chillingly clear. A single, distinct phrase, repeated over and over by a multitude of voices. The vessel is ready. The exchange is complete. The house itself began to transform. Marcus, in his waking hours, became silent and withdrawn, but his hands were never still. He started carving strange, geometric symbols into the walls with a kitchen knife. They were intricate, intersecting lines and circles that seemed to hum with a malevolent energy. They appeared on the door frames, the floorboards, the headboard of their bed. They were a virus, spreading through their home, marking it as something other. Rachel began seeing the same symbols burned into the backs of her eyelids when she closed her eyes, their shapes haunting her dreams, branding her subconscious. The house was no longer a sanctuary. It was a prison, and its walls were closing in. The confrontation was inevitable. She cornered Marcus in the living room, where he stood admiring the latticework of symbols he had etched into the plaster above the fireplace. She held up her phone, the reversed audio playing his demonic mantra. "What is this, Marcus? What is happening to us?" He turned to face her, and the placid mask he wore cracked. A smile spread across his face, a grotesque caricature of happiness. It was too wide, stretching his mouth into an unnatural shape. It was too still, a frozen rictus of terrifying calm. The man she married was gone, replaced by this thing. It spoke, and the voice was not Marcus's. It was a layered chorus, the dozens of whispers from the recording speaking in perfect, chilling unison through his mouth. "You were just a Vesta, Rachel, a placeholder. Your time is over. We are the ones who wake up now." A wave of vertigo crashed over her. Her own name, Asterisk, Rachel Asterisk, suddenly sounded foreign, a meaningless collection of syllables. She tried to recall her mother's face, the street she grew up on, her first kiss, but the memories were like old photographs, fading and blurring at the edges, the details dissolving into a featureless gray fog. Her identity was being erased, overwritten by something new and terrible. She stumbled back towards the hallway mirror, her reflection rushing to meet her. It was her face, but it wasn't. The eyes were cold, knowing, the mouth curved into that same, impossibly wide smile. And then, the reflection spoke, its voice a perfect echo of her own, yet filled with an ancient, triumphant malice. "It's my turn now." A new couple moves into the house. They sleep peacefully. At dawn, they wake up. The mirror flick. They woke up as different people. If this story made you question your reflection, your memories, and the person who wakes up in your skin, subscribe to Truths Untold, where identity fractures, reality bends, and the monsters wear your smile. Like, share, and comment, because sometimes waking up is the worst thing you can do.